inmate executed by South Carolina in less than 8 months, as that state makes its way through prisoners who ran out of appeals during an unintended 13-year pause on the death penalty. President Trump's immigration agenda playing out in hearings in key cases. Today in Louisiana, a judge will hear arguments on whether Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil should remain in detention while his case plays out. And in Maryland, a judge expected to hear arguments from the Trump administration and lawyers for a man mistakenly deported to El Salvador. Stocks are higher. The Dow up 531 points. The Nasdaq Composite ahead 266. More at townhall.com.
Financing a home, especially in today's market, is one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your family. Work with a mortgage company that puts you first. I do. Work with a lender funded on biblical principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I do. It's Mike Gallagher for the only mortgage company I've used for almost a decade now when financing or refinancing Fellowship Home Loans. I'm friends with the owners, Mike and Brian. I even have them on my show occasionally. I know the care their team puts into every single customer. I can personally tell you that it's a smooth, stress-free process. And that's due to Fellowship's level of service and expertise that puts you in the right loan for your family and your goals. There's a reason Fellowship Home Loans is flooded with 5-star reviews. Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
A Russian-American woman freed by Russia is back in the U.S. Her release became part of a prisoner exchange completed as both the U.S. and Russia aim to repair diplomatic ties.
Russian authorities arrested Ksenia Karolina in a Ural Mountain city back in February of 2024. Authorities convicted the ballerina of treason on charges stemming from her donation of about $52 to a pro-Ukraine charity. But U.S. officials have called this case, quote, absolutely ludicrous, unquote. Karolina became one among a growing number of Americans arrested in Russia in recent years amid tensions over the war in Ukraine.
That's correspondent Andrew Stewart. South Korean opposition leader Lee Jae-myung, widely seen as a frontrunner in a presidential election triggered by the removal of President Yoon Suk-yeol last week, has officially announced his presidential bid, the election set for June 3rd. Breaking news at townhall.com. Workers have recovered thousands of gallons of crude oil from an underground pipeline spill on North Dakota farmland. However, the owner of the line says it remains unclear when oil will start again flowing to refineries. The spill happened near Fort Ransom, about 60 miles southwest of Fargo. This year's official White House Christmas ornament, a little different.
It honors more than 150 years of culinary diplomacy practiced at state dinners. The White House Historical Association revealed the design Thursday. The ornament features the Reagan administration's red china plate on one side and the Clinton administration's gold-rimmed china on the other. The ornament typically honors a president. Last year's was a tribute to Jimmy Carter. Association President Stuart McLaurin says sometimes the ornament is used to highlight an important White House anniversary or occasion. Keith Peters, Washington.
More on these stories at townhall.com. I'm John Scott.
Number one for live and local
conservative talk.
I've been a registered Democrat for 28 years.
I'm really glad you're talking about this.
You gotta love these idiots out here. They think we're all stupid, I guess.
news, analysis, opinion.
Totally agree on that.
I disagree with you.
It's over.
Very upset.
Thanks for taking my call. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Wanted to ask you really quick. Is there room on the bandwagon for me?
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. From the Michaels, this hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
The time to rise has been engaged. Your better best to rearrange. I'm talking here to me alone. I listen to the finest work song. The finest hour.
Hello and welcome to Friday afternoon as we wrap up another busy week here on Colombo and Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. I'm Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Stell, and we are going to, like I said, wrap up the week, talk about election result fallout from local elections earlier this week, the latest on the tariff situation, the White House and its policy regarding pronouns and emails, which I think is super interesting. Kamala Harris is making some news today. She seems to be hinting that she's about to make her return to politics. Because why wouldn't you when you've been so successful? And, you know, just have all the momentum that somebody like Kamala Harris does. Why wouldn't you come back? We're going to talk to State Rep Travis Wilson in about an hour from now. So we'll talk a lot about those local issues when we have the representative on with us just after 3 o'clock. We're going to get the all-important weekend forecast from Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton in about 40 minutes, about 2:45 this afternoon. And we'll be joined by Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show. And right now, starting things off with us on this busy Friday is Gabe Phifer from Mike Ferguson in the Morning. Gabriel, good afternoon.
You know what time it is.
You know what time it is. It's time to talk to Gabe, who's a smart guy, knows about outer space. And there's an
That could be my new theme song.
Yeah. And there's an outer space story in the news, in the headlines, top of the headlines today. Eric Schmitt, Senator, our very own Eric Schmitt from Missouri, supports the firing of a Space Force commander. Gabe, we'll start with this. Just get your thoughts on it. I don't know. Anytime Space Force makes the news, I feel like I got to talk about it, because I want to keep Space Force as relevant as possible, even if it's not necessarily good news like this is. But just anything to keep Space Force, top of mind. The Pentagon fired Colonel Susanna Myers, the commander at the U.S. Space Force base in Greenland, after she distanced herself from Vice President J.D. Vance, who was just visiting the headquarters there in Greenland. After the vice president's visit, she emailed base personnel. This was on March 31st, so about a week ago, writing, quote, "I do not presume to understand current politics, but what I do know is the concerns of the United States administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of the Pitafik, I'm going to say that's how you say it, space base." She added that she had, quote, "spent the weekend thinking about Friday's visit, the actions taken, the words spoken, and how it must have affected each of you." The email was first reported by military.com. The Space Force said in a public statement Myers had been relieved of command, quote, "due to loss of confidence in her ability to lead." Republican Senators Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, Jim Banks of Indiana, and as I mentioned, our own Eric Schmitt of Missouri all praised the firing of the commander on Twitter, with Banks saying, quote, "Colonel Myers tried to politicize the Space Force and was held accountable. Lloyd Austin isn't Secretary of Defense anymore." And Senator Schmidt posted, quote, good on at Pete Hegseth and his team for their quick action here. Let me read to you what J.D. Vance said while he was there in Greenland at this Space Force base that apparently was so politically divisive that this commander had to speak out against it. Vance, during his visit to the snow-covered island, criticized Denmark for treating Greenlanders as second-class citizens. Quote, our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security of this incredible, beautiful landmass. Really, really controversial words there from the vice president. And I think also obviously not true from this now fired commander, Suzanne Myers, when she said, I don't presume to understand current politics. Well, one, if you're a commander in the military, I think you have to understand, you have to have a basic understanding, A, so that's a problem if you don't. And B, you obviously have at least a strong opinion, if not strong understanding. If you're going to, it's the first time, J.D. Vance, the vice president, is the highest ranking government official that's ever visited this Space Force base in Greenland. You would think that would be, ever. That you would think that would be a very positive thing, that the commander there and the soldier stationed there would all, want to celebrate and highlight as a positive thing. And yet this commander turns it into politics and has paid the price and is no longer in that position. What are your thoughts on this whole mess?
Well, very often, I kind of go back to the well of the various great advice, little bit nuggets of advice my parents gave me. And my mom once told me, at least, as it pertains to my conduct at school, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I applied that rubric, especially at work and I added this caveat. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, especially if it's about your boss. You dummy. What are you doing?
Right.
Why would you do that? It begs the question that if you feel the need to make an official statement, I mean, and that's the thing is, she could have said anything inside the base to her personnel directly. She could have called a meeting. They could have all sat around a Zoom call or whatever. Right. And she could have said, hey, by the way, guys, I don't know what JD was talking about, but I feel like the people of
Denmark have been great.
Well.
What are you like?
Right.
What?
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, when you make an official statement, you're saying, okay, you're saying very specifically, I mean, I don't know what my boss was talking about, but I'm not about that business. Just don't say anything at all if that's your problem.
Yeah. And has there ever been a more woke liberal sentence ever written than the actions taken, the words spoken, and how much it must have affected each of you? What?
Oh, it was very, it was very kumbaya to kind of come across that.
I've been on some
taken. Like what walking away from Air Force 2, the way he did it was just
right, or claiming that China, that Denmark's not doing, because one of the things he stated was, I mentioned in that one quote where he said that they have underinvested in the security of this incredible, beautiful landmass. Part of that was directed specifically at China, which has been,
that's demonstrably true.
Yeah, it's got its its eyeballs on Greenland, just like the United States does. And all I can think of here is like this. I'm trying to get in the mind of this commander. Like, does she think that the Trump administration is wrong for trying to acquire Greenland or make a deal with Denmark for the control of Greenland, whatever it may be? Because, like, I don't know, man. It's kind of a lighten up Francis kind of moment, because I don't know. I don't know what was so politically disturbing to her that they said that like she's the commander of the base and she like wouldn't go near the vice president while he was there. And like she only approached
Really?
him. Yeah, she only approached him when she absolutely had to, for like official greetings or like just formal things that you have to do. But other than that, she didn't want to be seen with JD Vance while he was there on the base. And again, you're in Space Force. Like you need all the support and all the attention you can get. And this is what you do with your moment. Go ahead.
Those are the actions of an ideologue. I mean, because the thing is, if your main concern as the operational commander of a Space Force base, your main concern is making sure your people have the equipment, support, the number of personnel, all of that stuff, and that comes from people like JD Vance. So the thing is, if you get the opportunity, if the CEO comes by your division, and you have the opportunity to maybe not necessarily ingratiate, but at the very least, press the flesh. You get a good solid handshake. You look him in the eye and say, sir, we could use some more help over here because of X, Y, and Z. You do that, and you do that at every opportunity. The idea that she deliberately distanced herself, that speaks to sort of an ideological purity test bullcrap that you see from leftists.
And
I don't want to platform him. I don't want to be seen near him.
Right.
I don't want my circle to say that I'm okay with this. And people have been harmed by his presence, and I don't want to disturb them.
Yeah,
it's all that bullcrap.
And the people there are soldiers in the United States military. They are not going to be so affected by, hey, look, I know JD Vance is with Donald Trump, and I know how that will that could set in depression. Seeing somebody with the Trump administration can just really mentally take you down, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you, and I understand that impact. They're soldiers. It's the vice president. Nobody on that base was curled up in the fetal position, scared of what was going to happen next because the vice president came to visit them. Absolutely dumb. And I agree with Senator Schmidt. Good on the administration for removing her from that command. I mentioned, and we'll continue this conversation when we get Ken Williams in here in just a moment. But I don't know if you've noticed this, Gabe. There has been an underlying current from Democrats in the media recently and in politics that have been like, even when it's not part of the conversation, have been coming to the defense of Kamala Harris. There was one story in the news earlier this week. I think it was some university president was talking about how the only reason Kamala Harris didn't get elected president is because Americans won't vote for a black woman. And then there's been other politicians recently talking about Nancy Pelosi, saying that they needed more time and a longer process. If Joe Biden would have gotten out sooner, would have given Kamala Harris a better chance at winning. James Clyburn out just today. This new headline: Representative Clyburn throws Kamala Harris's campaign under the bus, saying it was her team that failed her, not her. He said she's a tremendous talent who was let down by her campaign staff. He said, quote, "I will say this. I think that she's a tremendous talent. I think she ran a great campaign. I think she was ill-served in that campaign by people who should have listened to some of us who saw and felt things. She was a great candidate, and I think she will make a great candidate in the future, whatever she decides to run for, but I'm not going to give her any advice as to whether or not she should or should not." So, it just seems like there's this underlying current in the Democratic Party of propping Kamala Harris back up because of whatever's going to happen in the future, whether it's a run for governor of California or another run for president, which, you know what? Go for it, guys.
Do it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If she's the one that you want to prop up. Go ahead. Yeah.
Another Harris campaign would be awesome. It'd be like trying to sell oceanfront property in Arizona. Yeah, just keep doing that. Keep doing that. You're gonna make a ton of money, guys.
It's been happening, and I mean, in every story that has come out about Kamala Harris in the last few months is that that she intends to not go anywhere. That the only thing she's trying to decide is, do I run for governor of California or do I run for president of the United States? It's going to be one of or the other, and obviously both of those are huge political positions that would, if she were to win, would return her to a tremendous position of power. I don't think she has a snowball's chance at winning the presidency. I don't even know that she could win the governor's race in California, but that's got to be the better of the two for her. As for Kamala herself, she also reminded us this week that she is not done yet. Let's get Ken Williams into the conversation as well. And I'll let you know what Kamala Harris has said here recently. Also, along with the rest of her party, sort of starting to go out of her way, and they're going out of their way to remind Americans that she's not done yet, and trying to convince us, trying to rewrite history as they so often do, about what a great vice president she was and what a great presidential candidate she was, despite being awful failures in both of those endeavors. That's not how they remember it, and that's not how they want us to remember it either. So we'll fill you in on that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I want more word salads, and I want to bring back the cackle. Bring back the cackle. Yes.
Exactly. Continue. Yeah. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Kamala Harris. Let that be the new face of the Democratic Party. Gavin Newsom, let those Pete Buttigieg, let those folks all run with it, and let's see how strong of a party that is in the future. JB Pritzker, put him on that list as well. So yeah, I'll fill you in on all those details. We'll continue the conversation with Gabe Phifer, and Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show joins us next here on Colombo and Company.
This is what's happening.
The president is ready to drive this war to an end.
I think I have the power to end this war.
He is the deal maker in chief.
You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
101.9 and 94.1.
Number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
All this weather that we have had in our area, the severe weather, some power outages that have come along with that. Big reminder of why it's important to have a reliable light source in your home, and a reminder of why the team at Intervine, great local family-owned business that makes the best flashlights, lanterns, and headlamps available on the market, is the team that can help you with all of those things, including now with a huge discount offer. Use my name, Tony, as your promo code, TONY as your promo code at Intervine.com right now, and you can get 25% off everything. We're getting ready to get into the spring season and a lot of outdoor activities. So for the hardcore outdoorsman, if you're looking for, an upper end, high end lantern or flashlight, that like the Monster 2000 lumen waterproof lantern or the self-defense flashlight, Intervine's got you covered there, all the way down to smaller, reliable flashlights that easily fit in the kitchen drawer or in the glove box of your home. They even make batteries in all different sizes that you can get at 25% off with my promo code. Just again, use Tony as your promo code at Intervine.com to get 25% off all of their great products. Check them out. INTERVINE. Use my name, Tony, as your promo code at Intervine.com.
Jewels on Hampton and St. Louis Hills is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches on site. Jewels on Hampton is a premier jeweler featuring Alvanza's jewel art designs with an exquisite selection of diamonds, semi-precious stone jewelry, and vintage watches. Their expert design team can restyle your jewelry to today's contemporary style. They also do jewelry and watch repair. Need extra cash? Jewels on Hampton is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches. Bring in your collectibles and clocks and sports memorabilia and figurines too. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton, just 3 blocks south of Chippewa, and jewelsonhampton.com. Call them at 314-752-5000, 314-752-5000, and jewelsonhampton.com. Jewels on Hampton.
Hi, Sean Long from STL Fenceworks. A new fence or deck is an investment in your home and your lifestyle. But how do you ensure that you're getting the most out of that investment? At STL Fenceworks, we know the key is satisfaction. Satisfaction means getting a fence or deck that not only meets your needs, but exceeds your expectations. Satisfaction means working with a team that cares about your project as much as you do. Satisfaction means having confidence in the quality of your new fence or deck, knowing that it was built with the best of materials and workmanship. STL Fenceworks, your satisfaction is our passion. And for me, satisfaction is knowing that providing for your family is how I provide for mine. Visit stlfenceworks.com and experience the satisfaction in making your backyard dreams into a reality.
The tides are changing.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
The Democratic Party doesn't stand with what I stand for.
News Talk STL.
More Huey, I love it. Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Gabe Phifer from Mike Ferguson in the Morning still on the line with us, and joining us live in studio now also is Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show. Ken, how are you?
I'm good, and you know it's great to see Stell here too.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a great.
Yeah.
I love Fridays. I love this group conversation that we have every week. So, Ken, we were just talking in that last segment. Gabe and I were going over some of the recent stories or recent actions of people in the Democratic Party and people in the liberal media that have been keeping Kamala Harris's name out there. We just talked about James Clyburn was asked on CNN, I think it was last night, about the election, and he talked about what a great candidate Kamala Harris was and what a great vice president she was, and the only reason that she lost was because of her campaign members, not her herself. And we've seen other people recently in the Democratic Party sort of putting that out there. To me, it seems like a clear attempt to keep the former vice president's name relevant and in the discussion, because all the rumors is that she is either going to run for governor of California or run for president again. And they keep on, Gabe, here's another thing. They keep on talking about presidential polls and how all the latest 2028 presidential polls show that she's leading as far as Democratic candidates are concerned. What on earth does that have to do with anything right now? Like, what is that? That means nothing. If Kamala Harris is leading in the 2028 Democratic presidential nominee polls right now, but they still want to put that out there. I don't even know who's wasting time and stealing somebody's money to even conduct those polls.
So to conduct that poll,
right? Yeah. But anyway, as I mentioned, Kamala herself, she also reminded us this week that she's not done yet. The former vice president recently took to social media to cheer on the growing resistance by Democrats to President Donald Trump, saying, quote, "Today in every state across the nation, Americans are standing up to the administration." Mm-hmm. Also taking aim at Trump's most visible advisor and the world's richest person, Elon Musk. The former vice president emphasized that, quote, "The voices of working people will always be louder than the unelected billionaires." What a joke. Harris, in a possible tease for potential political return, spotlighted on social media a clip from the closing line of a speech from earlier this month where she said, "I'll see you out there. I'm not going anywhere." Gabe and I were just talking about how this is the best thing that could possibly happen to the Republican Party is if Kamala Harris decides that she still wants to keep running for president.
Well, I just want to say I think it's the best thing that could happen to the Democrat Party. I really think that they need to do what they're doing, and I think she needs to actually hunt down AOC and Jasmine Crockett and make them co-VPs. You know what I'm saying? They want to expand the Supreme Court. They want to expand everything. They want to expand Congress. Let them expand the VP spot and put two or even Ilhan Omar can go in there with them.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what I mean? And then they would have a really good, solid, I think, base for leadership in the Democrat Party coming up. In 2028.
Yeah, Gabe, we kind of ran
2.0.
Yeah, we kind of ran down the roster, Gabe, at the end of that last segment. But really think about it, like the people at the if you were to ask the average person out there that's not as engaged in politics on a daily basis like we are, because it's our jobs, other people have real lives and better things to do. But they would say, well, who are the leaders of the Democrat Party? I'm sure you would hear Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, if you're talking to people in Illinois or in the Midwest.
Hakeem Jeffries a little bit.
Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries for sure. I mean,
Cory Booker.
Not a good. Yeah, Cory. There you go. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg.
Man.
That's not a great roster. If that was a sports team, I've made this joke before. If that was like your sports team roster, you would be telling your fans that you're in a rebuilding year. We're not going to make a run. We're not going to make a run of the championship with this team. This is going to be more of a rebuilding season. Right? Where are the stars of the Democratic Party, Gabe?
Oh, that's a good question. We kind of remarked way back, actually, when we were still kind of discussing the idea of Joe Biden, hanging around for some reason. We were like, why doesn't this guy back out? Why not let some of the other rising stars come in? And then we would stop and think about, okay, well, what does the Democrat bench look like? And we'd realize, like, oh yeah, they don't really have anybody, do they? So it's kind of where they are right now. The only hope they have really is if they could basically have somebody come out of nowhere, kind of like Obama did back in the day. And they'd have to be a very attractive and magnetic personality. And the thing is, the further to the left that the Democrat Party itself goes, in terms of its leadership and its makeup, the less magnetic personalities you're going to get.
Yeah.
Because leftism is kind of a mind virus, and it turns people into a-holes.
Yeah, it really does. And this, so part of this story that I am reading from is from Fox Digital, and they point out in their story that while Kamala Harris has made these statements on social media, and she's done just a very few, literally maybe one or two speaking engagements since losing the election. It's not her that's out there really, it's certainly publicly in person, keeping her name relevant or her name in the conversation. It's everybody else in the party, which I think is massively telling. Here's a part of that story. 5 months after losing the presidential election to Trump, Harris's public appearances are still few and far between. And unlike her 2024 running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, and other top Democrats, she has not appeared at rallies or town halls. And she has also avoided doing any television interviews or taking part in any podcasts, ceding the spotlight to others in the party. Ken, if she's not good enough to do a television interview 4 years away from a presidential campaign, why on earth would you think that she's the right person for the job if you're in that party?
Yeah, she's just an unintelligent person, and that's the problem. They're trying to put her up to be something that she's absolutely not. She mentioned in there standing up to the billionaires. Okay, my first question, and any journalist should ask her, is what are you standing up for? And what are you standing up against? Because she can't answer that. Anything that she stands for, I have 81 clips in that machinery that we use every day for radio, of her saying everything from downsizing our population 18 to 24-year-olds are stupid. She's got constantly talking about the climate crisis, the open borders that she wants. She wants to bring everybody in. I mean, she can't run on any single thing that she's talking about. So when she talks about we're going to stand up against those billionaires, okay, what are you standing up for?
Right. And Gabe,
or against?
And Gabe, even to Ken's point, even the line about unelected billionaires is misleading, because most billionaires are liberals, at least the ones that are outspoken. I mean, you've got obviously Trump and Elon Musk, but then Mark Zuckerberg, like that was a mouthpiece for the Biden campaign. You've got George Soros, who's buying radio stations here in St. Louis and across the country, trying to control the media narrative and his extreme left-wing beliefs. I mean, and Nancy Pelosi, not a billionaire, but massively, massively rich, like a lot of the other long-seated Democrat politicians. I mean, when it's like, oh, you don't want to listen to these unelected billionaires, I think there's a whole lot more of those unelected billionaires doing the work of the liberal left than there are on the Trump team. Gabe, what do you think?
And what's funny too is it's as though she's trying to tap into the idea that the American people don't like unelected people running things, while trying to argue against a group that is removing unelected bureaucrats from running things. So it's silly. It's a snake eating its tail. It's stupid. It's self-destructive and redundant rhetoric from an ignoramus. That just kind of everything she says is stupid.
Well, ironically, she was never elected.
Well, it depends on when you.
Yeah, nobody voted for her anywhere along the line.
Well, it depends on when you listen to Nancy Pelosi, because Nancy Pelosi said that there was an open primary and for that Democratic nomination, and Kamala Harris won. But then, like a month later, she said that the reason that Kamala Harris lost is because they didn't do an open primary. That she had already.
You're
said
exactly right. Everything you're saying is
so
correct.
I don't know. Are you sure she didn't run? Because I don't think the Democrats even know if she.
Well, it depends on what universe we're living in and talking about.
It depends on what universe you're living in. Exactly right.
And you know what? If you guys go back a few days to Election Day, and Kamala put out that weird little, I'm sort of drunk, maybe I'm not, I don't know,
right.
regarding the election in Wisconsin. And everyone looked at that and thought, is this lady for real, or are we still dealing with cackling Kamala?
Yeah.
And it was the oddest thing.
Maybe she should have a drink, or maybe or a joint or something before she goes out. It couldn't make it worse.
Do it.
It wouldn't make it worse. Her public speaking.
What it might do, it might get her up to the aggressiveness of Trump at least, and then she could start saying whatever she wants, and whether it's a lie or not, it doesn't matter because she's a Democrat, and just go for it.
You know what? It all ties.
Or you could think like I do that she's been drunk the entire time.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I kind of agree with that. She's a functional alcoholic.
You know what? It all ties into. It all comes back to and all ties into the fact that Democrats have tricked American voters and tricked particular demographics across the board through the years, and this is the first time, maybe ever, certainly the first time in decades, where those demographics, those voters that they used to just be able to take for granted and take advantage of, they're turning on the Democrats. Some members of while the media, the mainstream media, is still largely carrying the water, it's getting a little bit better, and Democrats they just can't believe, they're panicking. They just can't believe that, we're the party of the common person. We're the party of the minorities. What do you mean we're not? What do you mean you're not going to vote for us? What do you mean that you don't like our policies anymore? It's like they don't know what to do, Ken, that the groups that they've been able to lie to and manipulate for so long aren't falling for it anymore, and they're panicking.
Well, guys, and Gabe, you can attest to this, I'm sure, that the Democrats were the ones of the KKK. They were historically,
yes, right.
they have a very
but
dark,
they have twisted that history.
Well, the thing is they have this dark and shady past, And remember when they were trying to say, oh, no, we've changed now. This is what the Republicans are now. Now people are seeing that people are actually looking back. I think this last election made a lot of people in America say, I'm going to go look at this a little bit.
I think so.
They keep saying this stuff and they cannot all be lying.
Mhm.
And then they find out, wait a minute, the Democrats created the KKK. What are you talking about?
Mhm.
And then they start seeing what happened where the Republicans were actually trying to keep slavery from actually getting a foothold again in America. And that's what actually did happen. So all this stuff of them trying to change history, I think is a big deal because I think America's woke up and they're saying, okay, no, enough of this.
Gabe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Ken's exactly right. I think in a lot of regards, the modern left, because the mask has slipped in many areas that the past is kind of catching up to them.
Mhm.
One of the biggest examples of this to me was the constant rhetoric around the illegal aliens who's going to clean our toilets and pick our crops.
Right.
Is basically the same. It was the same argument, against abolition. Who's going to clean our toilets and pick our crops if you take away all of our slaves? So it's like the mask flipped there, and I think they're championing up the little guy rhetoric. It just fell on deaf ears given all the things that they've been doing to the little guy.
So before we run out of time, we're talking to Gabe Phifer from Mike Ferguson in the Morning and Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show. I want to play this piece of sound for you that goes, it makes the point that we're talking about just crystal clear when it comes to Democrats, whether they're in, whether they're politicians or in the media. They just can't understand it. They can't fathom that voters that are supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to vote Democrat aren't doing it anymore. And this happened this morning on CNN. This just makes the point. CNN data guru admits shocking reality about country's view of the Republican Party even after the start of the tariff war. CNN data analyst Henry Inton said this morning that he was shocked when seeing how much the American public believes the Republican Party cares about them, even in the wake of President Donald Trump's tariff war. During CNN's News Central, Inton pulled up new aggregate poll numbers showing that Americans currently believe that Republicans care about United States citizens as much as Democrats. It's just, that's it too. It just says it's equal, and he can't handle it. He has a meltdown about this poll, and I'm going to play you that sound right now. Stell, if you could put me up over there. Here's Henry Inton this morning on CNN.
This, to me, is one of the most shocking pieces of poll data that I truthfully have seen this year, or maybe in any prior year.
Really?
Yes, really, because I want you to take a look. Cares more about the needs for people like you. You mentioned the Cape Ball. We got a tie, even after this tariff war had already started, split between Democrats and Republicans on how people feel which party cares more for needs of people like you. And why is that so surprising? Because I want you to take a look at prior years. Democrats always lead on this question. Back in 2017, before the 2018 midterms, 13-point lead. 2005, a 23-point lead for Democrats. 1994, which was a big Republican year, a 19-point lead for Democrats. And now all of a sudden, a tie? All of a sudden, the Democrats, who are the party of the people, no more. We get a tie on this question, on a question that has traditionally overwhelmingly been a Democratic advantage. Which party cares more for the needs of people like you? It's truly something I would not have expected to see, especially after this tariff war had begun.
He's a mess. Ken, final thoughts here, but he is a mess, and it perfectly encapsulates this. Here's a guy on CNN that just can't believe the American people trust Republicans. They think Republicans have their best interest at heart. How is this possible?
And this
They're just so detached.
This just what I heard him say was it's shocking that the stupid low information American voter doesn't believe us any longer. And that's what the mainstream media, left-wing media does. about all this. They think that the American people should be believing them, and they're not now. They're getting more information. They're becoming a little smarter now and researching, and they're finding out that, I guess they're not going to buy everything we spill to them.
Mm-hmm. Gabe, this guy, you heard it there, and I'm sure you pictured it. Exactly what you pictured in your mind is exactly what was happening. He was just in total freak out mode, like very animated, throwing his hands up in the air like, what are people thinking? They like Republicans.
Stop looking around. Look it up. Look at me. Listen to me.
Your thoughts, Gabe?
Yeah, I think, the political upheaval that has been these past couple years, I think, is very important. We were talking about how it's historic. It's an unprecedented opportunity for conservatives. It's basically the last chance, I think, in many ways, for America to kind of right the ship and change course and get back on track. And I think that's one of the bigger indicators is that we have with the people an amazing opportunity. And my God, I really, really hope that the Republicans don't screw this up.
Yeah.
Amen. That is Gabe Phifer from Mike Ferguson in the Morning. You can hear him and Mike and now Jerome, because Stell Babe's with me every morning starting at 5:30 a.m. right here on News Talk STL. Also check out Gabe's YouTube channel at St. John the Philosopher on YouTube. And of course, you can hear Ken Williams now with Vic Porcelli 3 hours every weekday from 9 a.m. till noon. Gentlemen, as always, thank you for your time. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
God bless.
All right. Back at you, Gabe. Thank you. And speaking of the weekend, we have that all-important weekend forecast. Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton joins us next on Colombo Company.
Damn if you don't. I'm supposed to get a raise next week. You know damn well I won't. Working for a living. Working for a living. Working for a living. Living and working. I'm taking what they're giving because I'm working for a living.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Wherever I'm at, home, car, wherever.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Just a convenience on the phone.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
Love the new app.
And listen anytime,
Everywhere.
anywhere.
Talking a minute ago about, the beginning of the spring season as far as like finally getting a chance to get outside. We'll learn more about the chances of that happening this weekend and in this coming week when we talk to Steve Templeton, get that forecast here in just a moment. But I know a lot of folks chomping at the bit to get outside, to go fishing and things like that. And of course, if you're going to be doing any of those activities, the team at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton, Illinois are the team that can help you with all of your outdoor needs, all of your bow hunting needs, all of your trapping needs in this time of year. Most importantly, all of your fishing needs covered there at Bluff City Outdoors. Open 7 days a week in Alton, about a mile east of Fast Eddie's there on East Broadway. Also open every single day is their archery range that you can shoot in, which is just an absolute blast. So get out there and check it out. Also, don't forget about the Bluff City Outdoors show, which you can hear every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. here on News Talk STL, hosted by myself and the owner of Bluff City Outdoors, Mark McMurray. So check out the show. And before your next trip into the great outdoors, make sure you visit Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. You can learn more by following them on Facebook and at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
I'm so tired of my water smelling like rotten eggs. Iron foul. It makes my clothes and home smell. And my sink and faucet look dirty. I'm calling Jones Air and Water Treatment for their solution to this pollution.
Jones Air and Water Treatment has a solution to your pollution. Call now for your free water analysis at 636-899-1040 and live with clean, great-tasting water. That's 636-899-1040 or joneswater.com on the web. Call us now.
Who doesn't love a good gyro? Soulard Gyro is the place to go. They're family-owned and operated and been operating since 2009 and growing. 4 locations in O'Fallon, Maryland Heights, Wentzville, and Soulard. And they have gyros, rice bowls, salads, and wraps, Greek fries. I didn't even know that was a thing. So stop into one of their 4 locations. And if you need something catered, they can take care of that too. Soulard Gyro, SoulardGyro.com. make authentic gyros great again.
Hey, Colombo here for Rockwood Charcoal. Rockwood is made from 100% pure Missouri oak and hickory, so you're cooking with the best and supporting local industry and a local business all at once. There's over 100 area Rockwood retailers. Find yours at rockwoodcharcoal.com.
Steve Templeton's Weekend Forecast, brought to you by Connor Roofing. You can count on Connor for all your roofing needs. Visit ConnorRoofing.com. That's CONNER Roofing.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Great conversation there with Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show and Gabe Phifer from Mike Ferguson in the Morning. Check out the podcast if you missed that, or just want to make sure you never miss anything that happens here on the show. Being subscribed to our podcast is the best way to make that happen, because we put out the show as a podcast right after we get off the air every day, and we put it on basically every podcast platform. So wherever you get podcasts, just make sure you're subscribed to Colombo and Company. All right, time to get that all-important weekend forecast from Steve Templeton. Steve, I there's a lot riding on this one for me. I feel like maybe we're finally past all the crazy storms and wind and cold weather, and I'm hoping that maybe we got some dry times and maybe spring will happen at some point. So I got my fingers crossed.
I would call it a pause. I wouldn't say we're past it.
Okay. Well, I'll take a pause, because I'm definitely ready. For some warmer weather, and for, like, it feels like spring has never actually started. Like, it feels like anytime we've gotten a little tease of a nice day, here comes another storm, or here comes more crazy wind, or whatever it may be. So what's going to happen over the next few days? Are we getting a reprieve, or are we still stuck?
Reprieve. It's a pause from bad storms and flooding rains, and some nice weather this weekend, especially by Sunday. You'll feel like, oh, this is spring. There it is. So we've got a great weekend coming our way. But it starts off actually kind of chilly. The clouds out there are going to start to clear out tonight. So we're going to be dry, but clear skies, light winds, cooler air moving in really helps push the temperature down. 39 for the low. And suburbs, outlying areas, you're going to see some frost. And there's a frost advisory on the Illinois side, but even on the Missouri side, I'd say if you have real sensitive plants and you're worried about that, maybe cover them up. 39 for the low in the city, a little colder in outlying areas, maybe down to about 35, still above freezing. But that's a chilly start. And then the afternoon, pretty nice, mostly sunny, light winds, and 66 for the high. That's near normal. But it gets better. Sunday, we have to put up with some wind, gusts to around 30 miles an hour, but that helps pump up the temperature. 79 for the high.
Hey,
partly to mostly sunny skies. There you go. That's going to feel like spring. Next week, it does cool down a little bit, nothing major. I'm looking at late Wednesday into Thursday as a period of some rainy weather, some storms, maybe a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of rainfall. So midweek next week to Thursday, we'll get back into some rain.
Man, I hope that with that wind and some of that the dry days here before that next round of rain gets here, the ground gets a chance to dry out. You touched on it there, but just how saturated is the ground out there right now? I mean, I feel like my yard's been a sponge for weeks, it seems like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just for the month of April, we've had over 5 inches of rain. And it's about 4 inches above normal for the month so far. If you look at spring since March 1st, 8.27 inches of rain. So it has been soggy. And I looked ahead at the Climate Prediction Center from NOAA. They issue like 8 to 14 day outlooks. And it looks like in that range, so a week to 2 weeks from now, we're going to be warmer than normal, but wetter than normal. So there could be a couple of days in there where we get, half an inch of rainfall, and maybe worse. We'll have to keep an eye out. I don't see anything that looks like flooding rains in my 10-day forecast. I just see a period of some wet weather late Wednesday into Thursday next week.
Gotcha.
Hi there, Steve. Stalpontikis here with a quick question for you. Since you mentioned looking ahead, is it fair to say that maybe we've actually turned the corner temperature-wise? Because I know you've mentioned highs in the 60s, and then we've got a mid-70 day, upper 70s on Sunday, and then back into the 60s and maybe low 70s. Have we turned the corner to at least put the 50s and 40s behind us, you think?
Yeah, hey, good to hear from you, Stel. I wish the answer was yes, but I hesitate on that. We just recently, earlier this week, had a freeze warning. The average last freeze in St. Louis is April 5th, but you have to emphasize the word average. So that means, half the time it's after April 5th. I usually think about, people who are asking about planting and worrying about a freeze. I usually say if you're really worried, you wait till Mother's Day, but usually by late April, we kind of turn the corner. So I don't think we've quite turned the corner, so to speak, on that just yet. I think there still could be some cool days, or maybe even, even tonight it's going to be chilly, down to 39 for the low. But I don't think we can put the cold air behind us quite yet. But we're going to get a reprieve, we're going to get a pause, and we're going to get up to 80 degrees by Sunday.
I will take that as long as we can get it. So enjoy it while it's here. Steve, thank you as always for your time this afternoon. And thank you for a pretty decent weekend forecast as well, my friend.
Always a pleasure.
Great to talk with you.
Always a pleasure.
Have a great weekend yourself.
Care,
we'll talk to you soon. That is Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with some pretty great news. Man, still 79, 80 degrees on Sunday. That's going to feel like summer.
It is.
It's going to feel like summer has sprung when we get here.
And the Cardinals are back in town.
Yeah.
So if they've got that would be great.
Yep. We need to take a break. We will talk to Missouri State Representative Travis Wilson next on Colombo and Company.
Agree.
I think conservatives have it wrong.
Or disagree.
I couldn't agree with you more.
The conversation happens here.
I agree with you on Trump.
I'm shaking my head. I'm one of your liberal Democratic listeners, and I don't get why any of this even matters.
Because your voice matters.
Everybody told him he couldn't do it, and then he did do it.
That's what you got to do. You got to play hardball.
I want to hear what people think and be able to talk about it.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Hello, Tim Jones here with Eric from Newsteaders Fine Jewelers. Eric, your diamonds are so fantastic at Newsteaders. You named the website after them, wowdiamonds.com. Tell us about Wow Diamonds.
Well, we picked that name because when people look at the diamonds, they all exclaim the same thing. Everybody says, wow. And nobody can spell Newsteaders, so we figured Wow Diamonds would definitely be good tagline, and it's very accurate. We actually introduced the lab-grown diamond to our St. Louis family, and we're the exclusive home of the trademark Wow Diamond. It's the most perfectly cut and polished diamond you'll ever experience, and we can fit one into anyone's budget. The thing that's nice about them is they're significantly less expensive than a mined diamond, and of course the artwork is in the cutting and polishing. That's where you get the beauty in the diamond, and that's what we excel at.
Newsteaders, a St. Louis jewelry tradition since 1961. Stop by and find out why. 2961 Daughtery Ferry Road, or on the internet, wowdiamonds.com for Newsteaders Fine Jewelers.
Number one for live and local
conservative talk.
Every day, something new.
News, analysis, opinion.
A partial reprieve on some tariffs.
Trump administration continues to pile pressure on President Zelensky to end the war.
Those cuts have affected at least 18 federal departments and agencies.
I'm not even looking at the market because long term, the United States will be very strong with what's happening here.
101.9 and 94.1.
St. Louis is number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Here's my problem.
Completely agree with your sentiments.
He talks about we're divided. Well, yeah, we are.
And we need to wake up as a country and realize what's going on.
101.9 and 94.1.
Number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL. KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefontaine, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. Even as China doubles down in its public posture against President Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods, Asian expert Gordon Chang says China will ultimately lose the battle. On the Salem News program this week on Capitol Hill with Tony Perkins, Chang says America holds all the cards in this standoff.
Yeah, the only thing that China really can do at this point is to intimidate President Trump, to force him to back down. I don't think that our president is going to surrender, though, because he does know that the U.S. market can't be replaced. It is the world's largest. I think President Trump is going to win this, but it is going to be a close contest because the Chinese, as they say, they lose their economy if they lose this tariff war.
Gordon Chang adds that President Trump is never likely to be intimidated by China. His full This Week on Capitol Hill interview will be broadcast starting at 10 a.m. Saturday on the Salem News Channel. Also at townhall.com, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley says he's not surprised to hear Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, normally a key Trump opponent, is now supporting the president's tariffs. Bob Agnew reports.
Whatley says all the president is trying to do is to stop unfair trading practices, which have devastated U.S. industry.
No state has been affected, by that and by the giant sucking sound, as they call it, of NAFTA than Michigan.
After all, the GOP chair says politicians need to listen when powerful union leaders are supporting President Trump.
They cannot just reflexively oppose the president on a 75-25 issue without paying a penalty when it comes to elections.
Whatley was interviewed by the Salem Radio Network. Bob Agnew reporting.
3 people were killed, 1 injured when a small plane crashed this morning near major Interstate 95 in Boca Raton, Florida. Stocks finished higher. The Dow up 619 points. The NASDAQ composite added 337. More at townhall.com.
World is spiraling out of control. Financial markets are extremely volatile. Global conflicts are escalating and inflation is everywhere. How do you protect yourself when everything's uncertain? The answer is gold. Specifically, the 2025 1-ounce Gold Eagle in flawless NGC MS70 condition from Global Coin. It's a lifeline in these chaotic times. A rock-solid asset that has outperformed for millennia. Call 888-800-1045 right now to lock in this stunning coin for dealer cost. Just $3,199. Free shipping. No sales tax. Secure this tangible asset you can hold today. The first 100 callers get a free MS70 2025 Silver Eagle. 2 U.S. minted legal tender coins to shield you from the storm. Global Coin stands by you with a 30-day return policy because your security matters. Go to globalcoindeal.com or call 888-800-1045 today. They're knowledgeable, professional, and trustworthy. No gimmicks, just incredible coins at incredible prices. 888-800-1045. Call before.
Because truth matters.
Let's speak that truth.
Because understanding matters.
Let's break this down.
With all that's happening.
And it's happening a lot faster.
What matters most is...
the only question that matters here.
Are you informed?
Important issues that are facing this country.
Depend on us.
The latest events.
The information you need.
Here are the facts.
When you need it.
We always have great conversations.
You guys have a great radio station.
101.9 and 94.1. News Talk STL. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. A chilly night tonight. Frost for some. There's a frost advisory in the Illinois side, but even on the Missouri side and the suburbs could be a little cooler than our low of 39 in the city. It'll stay above freezing in St. Louis, but you might have some frost in the morning. So after chilly start, a nice day though. Mostly sunny, light winds, and a high of 66. Even warmer Sunday, 79. Partly to mostly sunny skies. We do have to put up with some winds. It'll be a windy Sunday. Gusts to around 30 to 35 miles per hour. But how about that high of 79 for Sunday? That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
News, analysis, opinion.
Hopefully she will be our last Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon.
Nobody in America wants the destruction of public education.
This is empowering parents, teachers. You can do a fraction of the money. The dollars will go farther because we're cutting out the bureaucracy.
We're going to take care of our teachers. Returning education very simply back to the states.
101.9 and 94.1.
St. Louis is number one.
For conservative talk.
News Talk STL. This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Jewels on Hampton, paying some of the highest prices for your gold, silver, diamonds, and more. Call 314-752-5000 or visit jewelsonhampton.com.
Fox News commentary.
Stephen A. Smith is seriously considering a run for president. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
National security is at risk, and China controls most of the world's supply of antimony, a critical metal for military and defense technology. Military Metals Corp is taking action and securing a Western-controlled supply with projects in Europe and North America. Critical minerals are the backbone of modern defense. Now's the time to pay attention. The stock trades on the OTC under ticker MILIF. Call your broker today or go to www.militarymetalscorp.com to learn more.
And host Stephen A. Smith has officially opened the door to at least the idea of running for president. In a social post, he said, quote, "Hate the thought of being a politician, but sick of this mess, so I'm officially leaving all doors open." Well, this is a change of tune because just a month ago, he said he, quote, "didn't give a damn about the office and that he preferred challenging politicians rather than being one." Smith has been openly critical of both political parties, so it's unclear what he'd run as, but there is polling that suggests he'd have a shot as a Democrat contender. Republican pollster McLaughlin and Associates clocked Smith at around 2% in a Democrat primary head-to-head with other big names such as Kamala, Newsom, and Buttigieg. Important to note that pre-2016 victory, President Trump also polled around that level early on. You know, good for Stephen A. if he really wants to throw his hat in the ring, but I'm not so sure this sudden interest is genuine. I'm Tommy Lahren, and you can watch my show, Tommy Lahren is Fearless, at Outkick.com.
When you've got something to say, be heard loud and clear.
If they'll just do what they were voted in to do.
This party needs to get a backbone. They need to get some spine.
Join the conversation. St. Louis's place to talk.
The Democrats and the Republicans can give us all the lip service they want, but what they need to do is take action today.
101.9 and 94.1.
You have to take a stand sometimes.
This is News Talk STL. News, analysis, and opinion. Number one for live and local
conservative talk.
I'm very angry.
I've heard a lot of people talking about gun control. You're not going to wave a magic wand and get rid of the establishment. This maniac is going to inspire the next maniac.
News, analysis, opinion.
But my focus is kind of the mental health crisis. Swamps not going to drain itself.
I'm just sick of the protesting in general, and that's why it's so very important to be prepared.
101.9 and 94.1.
St. Louis is number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Stell. Great 2 o'clock hour there with Gabe Phifer from Mike Ferguson in the morning, Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show, and Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with a pretty decent weekend forecast. Sunday finally going to be warm in the upper 70s. We need it, but he said more. It cools down and more rain by mid of next week. But let's enjoy it while we have it this weekend. Before we turn things over to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show at the end of this hour, still got some more things to talk about. And as I mentioned, we're going to turn the conversation back to local politics here for a few minutes. As joining us in studio for the first time in studio with us is State Rep Travis Wilson. Great to see you. How are you?
Good to be with you here, Tony. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. So we talk a lot about local politics on this show throughout the week. We have some regular guests like Rodney Boyd, who I lovingly refer to as the Missouri political insider. Senator Nick Schroer is part of this radio station. Representative Justin Sparks is a regular on this show. We've recently talked to Representative West and others. So just really appreciate any time a local lawmaker like yourself goes out of your way, especially, you're on your weekend, during the session, to come down here and to inform people about what's happening in Jeff City. So thanks for coming down here today. It's great to see you.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I'll tell you something, you've got an all-star team that you just mentioned there with all of those names before me. So that's a lot to live up to.
Well, like I said, I think it's important because there's so much happening on the national level. And, we have to give those national stories the time that they deserve because they're important and they're impactful. But we can't do it at the sacrifice of local stories, especially this time of year during the session when, you guys are debating a lot of really important issues and a lot of impactful things that are going to, have an impact on the lives of of our listeners and Missouri citizens this year and in the years to come. So I always think it's really important to keep an eye on those local issues. So as we've talked about, we're now like 3/4 of the way through this legislative session. I can't believe how fast the calendar has gone and how fast this year has gone by. There have been some victories and some cool things to talk about. And there has been some frustration, as in years past, with big issues like addressing Amendment 3 or IP reform, still out there and undecided. I want to get in some specifics with you in a minute, but just overall, how do you feel about the progress of the 2025 legislative session at this point?
Well, I can tell you I feel a lot better about the 2025 legislative session than the previous two sessions I've been a part of. I'm in my sophomore term and I'm in my third year. And I can tell you that this session has been a breath of fresh air as far as movement throughout the building. And the Senate and House are working well together, which is really making a nice difference and being helpful. And ultimately, I think that's going to yield some great results for the people of Missouri. Now, you, of course, were talking about a couple of different things there, and you mentioned that we've had some prior successes already. We are, in fact, very much in the fourth quarter. There's only 5 weeks left in the session, actually 21 legislative days left.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. So we're very much right there. We're in that fourth quarter, but already we've got some great things done. Specifically, I sit on the Commerce Committee. And so we were able to move a package through there to be helpful with Prop A results and helping business owners, because that's something that a lot of my constituents have contacted me about, people who own businesses in my district in St. Charles, and talked about how that's going to be problematic for their business. And so we wanted to make sure we were doing things to be helpful to them. I'm happy to tell you we've got that package passed out of the House. It looks good in the Senate. We're hoping for good things on that regard. You also mentioned Amendment 3, and obviously there's a lot of strong feelings about this topic. And, in the district I represent in St. Charles, that's definitely a strong topic that, comes up when I'm knocking on doors and whatnot. And anybody who asked, I always told them, I was always upfront. I said, look, I'm a pro-life politician. I want to do what we can to protect life. But within that, a lot of people were unaware that Amendment 3 did not help women in general the way that it was advertised that it would.
Yes.
And so things, for instance, and this is just one aspect, but what we're trying to be helpful with is protecting women. And so it says that you can have an abortive procedure with anybody in a white coat, basically.
Yeah.
And so theoretically,
doesn't have to be a doctor, doesn't have to be a licensed physician or caregiver or anything. Just anybody giving you medical advice is suddenly protected like a doctor would be, or have the same power a doctor would have under Amendment 3.
Correct.
It's crazy.
And conversely, there is no situation. It's sort of a hold harmless situation for the doctor.
Yeah.
And so if something goes wrong, God forbid, that creates a problem where that woman has no legal recourse against that doctor. And so it really is not helpful to women the way it should be. And so that's something that I feel very strongly about. Obviously, I've got some great women in my life that I always think about wanting to protect, and I want to make sure that we're protecting Missouri's women in general.
Yeah, amen to that. And I think you're exactly right. I think you're spot on with, and I think that this was the plan with the people that were endorsing Amendment 3, is that they were misleading about what it, all the things that it did and some of the things that it didn't do, as you just pointed out. And it took advantage of the voters in Missouri that are generally pro-life, but aren't quite positive they want to take away abortion completely. They thought they were passing a piece of legislation that had restrictive abortions and had protections for moms and things like that. Whereas the truth is, as you just said, it's actually the opposite in a lot of those cases. And as more and more voters realize, I'm sure you hear this, you've mentioned, where you are in St. Charles, District 106, correct? 106. I'm sure you've heard from your own constituents since the election, from maybe even people that did support Amendment 3 that are generally pro-life people that are realizing, oh, I did not know that all of that was in this bill and they kind of feel taken advantage of. And hopefully we're able to work on that and clean that up. Is that one of the priorities that you guys are working on right now? Are you personally focused on right now?
It's definitely a priority. And so what you've probably seen in whether it's social media or different news stories out there, you've probably seen a couple of different HJR, House Joint Resolution numbers floating out there, one of which was HJR 54. And our Health and Mental Health Committee chairwoman, her name is Melanie Stinnett. She's from the Springfield area. She is a fabulous representative, and she really carried the ball forward with HJR 54. She took a lot of arrows. She felt a lot of heat for it. And ultimately, the bill, as it morphed through the legislative process, as legislation sometimes does, it grew into something that wasn't as good as it could have been or should have been. So ultimately, I think that the House leaders decided to sort of part ways with HJR 54. And we owe a debt of gratitude to Melanie Stinnett. But ultimately, what's happening now is HJR 73 has been drafted. That's being carried by Representative Brian Seitz, who is from the Branson area, and he feels very strongly about this topic. I think that we can get that moving forward, and hopefully we're going to be able to put that before the people of Missouri and protect women, which is ultimately the goal at the end of the day, is to help women, protect women, and save lives.
Talking to State Rep Travis Wilson, you mentioned a minute ago about how, and I totally agree with you, we've covered, I've been watching the legislative session for years, and it seems like you're in a time machine, and a deja vu time machine year after year with some of the same frustrations and some of the same issues at the end of the year. It does seem like some of those frustrations still exist, but maybe not at the level that they have over the last couple of years. As you mentioned, things are moving along a little bit better. Would you say that is because of the interaction of voters? I feel like Missouri voters, much like voters across the country with Republicans in Washington, D.C., that there's a real mandate from conservative Missouri voters that you guys get this work done in Jeff City, and we don't have some of those same frustrations that we've seen in the past. Would you attribute that to why this session is maybe a little bit different than in the past? Would voter engagement have something to do with that?
Absolutely. And, this goes back to a couple of different things that happened last year, which obviously was the election year. On the day after the session ended last year, I had a business owner call me. It was Saturday, and I was walking into an event, and I talked to him for about 15 or 20 minutes as I was sitting in the car, and he was telling me, about his frustrations and disappointment with what had occurred. And, for context, as you probably recall, last session, the 2024 session, we passed the lowest number of bills outside of 2020, which was, clearly the COVID year.
Yeah.
So,
and set the record for the most arguments about parking spots.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Very true.
Wasn't a great year.
There was definitely a lot of, stories.
Yes, there you go.
A lot of storylines,
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of storylines to go around. But, ultimately that business owner was really disappointed. And I think was at the time very motivated to write the entire house a letter individually and ask, what did you do to help this be more productive? How can you change it in the future? And ultimately I was able to provide them with some information, and they were still motivated, but they were less upset, if you will. But as I was going through the summer and into the fall, and I was knocking on doors, and I can tell you, I knocked on thousands of them, Tony, and people ultimately would say, we know that you all have different ideologies. We want you to get over it and get things done. And so I can tell you what's happening this year. Number one, you're absolutely right. Voters are very engaged, and they're very much paying attention, as they should be, because we work for the people. And that's ultimately what a lot of elected officials don't always remember. And so we work for the people. And so I'm engaged, whether you agree with me or not. I'm going to answer your email. If you're a constituent of mine, I'm going to answer your email, and we're going to have a dialogue because I work for you. And so that's something that's very important. People are paying attention to that most definitely. And what is ultimately happening also, like someone like myself, I've spent a career in economic development. And so I've been trying to help grow the businesses in Missouri. And so one of the things that I do is I work on things like tax incentives, tax credit legislation. And so this is something that I can go to my colleagues across the aisle and I say, look, there's things that you and I are going to disagree on. Let's not spend any time talking about that. Let's talk about, let's play in the sandbox together that we can. And economic development is definitely that. So a great example is I've been working with a senator from the city of St. Louis, Senator Steve Roberts, and he's been
I've
very
talked to Senator Roberts before. Yeah.
He's a fantastic individual, and he's also a military man. He is a part of the reserves, and he is serving our country, and I appreciate that service. And so I don't have a problem working with Senator Roberts to try to bring things forward that help the St. Louis region, and that's what we've been doing. And so then I can go to my colleagues that are in the House from across the aisle, and we can talk about that topic and build consensus and ultimately be helpful. And so not only are we trying to do things like we talked about with Prop A and Amendment 3, but we're also trying to do things that help grow our region. Yeah. And ultimately, I think that's something that has been neglected in the past, and I'm trying to change that.
Well, my family, we own a small printing company, and we have, obviously, I work with a lot of small business owners, and I can tell you that is something that is so important for the state of Missouri and for our region, especially when you look across the river. And, we have a lot of listeners in Illinois and a lot of friends and family in Illinois and, here across the entire radio station. And, they are suffering when it comes to support of small businesses and for small business owners and things like that. So to provide that just across the river here in the state of Missouri, I think is a tremendous thing to be pursuing. So I wish you luck in that. I'd love to have you come back and give us updates on how that is going as we round out this session. Only got a couple minutes left here with State Rep Travis Wilson. Besides the tax incentive issue, 15 weeks down, 5 weeks to go. What else do you think realistically can get done before the clock runs out on this on this session? Specifically, issues like Second Amendment preservation or IP reform, some of these things that we've talked about for so long. It seems to be just a continued frustration.
Well, and I can tell you, each representative, I would imagine, also feels a similar frustration. Mm-hmm. I'm one of 163 votes.
Yeah.
And so
sure.
I can tell you, I'm
can't move it all yourself,
right,
certainly.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to be voting in favor of, protecting the Second Amendment. I'm going to vote in favor of the other issues we've talked about. But, I'm only one. Yeah. And so you really do have to work well. And the governor, he has really stepped up.
Yeah.
I understand this is Governor Keough's first year. And obviously there's some favor that goes with, being in your first year, but ultimately he has really set some high goals. In his State of the State back in January, it was a 48-minute address, and he spent the first 12 minutes talking about how to reduce crime in Missouri. And so that's a huge priority for him. I'm proud to say that right before spring break, we got that taken care of. And so that's done. And the St. Louis Police Board, as you know, will now be appointed by the governor. Mm-hmm. So that's a very big deal. That's a big win for the city of St. Louis. Obviously, we just had an election on Tuesday. We're going to have a new mayor in the city of St. Louis. So I am hopeful that Mayor-elect Spencer is going to be able to work well with the governor and partner with our state agencies to bring about some real positive change in the city of St. Louis. That's the type of thing that I'd be looking forward. As far as legislatively is concerned, I think that there's, a couple of things still on the to-do list. Right now, we've gotten a lot of the agenda that we set out for in January. We've gotten a lot of that accomplished. And so now it becomes, about personal priorities. For instance, one that I'm working on, I have a dementia care coordinator bill. Oh. And so this is a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
I used to work for the city of St. Charles. And when I worked there, I worked for Mayor Sally Faith, former House member. And she was a great mayor to work for. After she left office, she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And so she actually wrote a book about it that you can buy on Amazon today. Point being that that's the type of thing that we're going to be trying to push forward is how can we be helpful in, a variety of what you would say, less headline type situations, but still very important.
Yeah, absolutely. State Rep Travis Wilson, I hope we can get you back on. There's more things I would love to talk to you about as we go through these closing weeks of the 2025 legislative session. I'm glad you brought up the governor too, because I think that's an important one as far as when we're talking about, why this session maybe has different momentum than ones in the past. The governor's influence and engagement, I think, cannot be ignored in that area. If people want to learn more about you and what you're working on and want to have their voices heard as far as, wanting to influence with their opinion what you guys are doing there in Jeff City, what are the best ways to do that? Your social media, websites, things like that. How can they follow you?
Absolutely. Let me start out by giving you my personal phone number.
Oh, it's a dangerous move. I like it, though. I like guys that live on the edge.
I'm telling you, 314-540-1965. 314-540-1965. That's my personal cell. It's sitting right here on the table next to me. Anybody who wants to call me can reach out at any time. Secondly, they can also email me at travis.wilson@house.mo.gov. travis.wilson@house.mo.gov. And of course, I'm on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn, and easy to find. Travis Wilson. Just look for the guy wearing the glasses and the blue suit with the red tie. It's easy to find.
I love it. And I hope we can have you back on to continue some of these conversations before the end of the session. Rep. Travis Wilson, thanks for your time on a Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Have a good one.
You bet. And Stella and I, before we hand things off to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show, we'll wrap up the week with a little Friday fun time, including some possible bad news for the Obamas. Are they not as popular as we've always been told they are with the American people? I'll fill you in on that story next here on Colombo and Company.
And may sunshine and happiness surround you when you're far from home. And may you grow to be proud, dignified and true. And do unto others as you'd have done to you.
Hey, thank you very much for taking my call.
News, analysis, opinion.
Yes, I just want you to know what a breath of fresh air you people are.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Mentioned a little bit earlier, especially after all of the severe weather that we have gone through in our area that's brought some power outages and things like that, along with it, how important it is to have a reliable light source in your home and in your vehicle. And that is what Intervine and Intervine.com does best. Local family-owned business that makes the best flashlights, lanterns, and headlamps available on the market, all right now for 25% off just by using my name, Tony, as your promo code at Intervine.com. Everything for the all the way up to the hardcore outdoorsmen, stuff for them like the self-defense flashlight or the Monster 2000 lumen lantern, waterproof lantern, all the way down to small, reliable headlamps or flashlights that go easily in your drawer or in your glove box, so you can have those in your home and in your vehicle as well. They even have batteries in all different sizes that you can stock up on right now for 25% off. Again, all you got to do is use my name, Tony, Tony, as your promo code at Intervine.com to get 25% off everything. Intervine is Intervine. Use my name, Tony, for 25% off at Intervine.com.
Confused about tariffs and trade policies? The Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University and News Talk STL present economist Dr. Nicholas L. Zebarth in their H.F. Langenberg Memorial Speaker Series. Join us April 24th as Dr. Zebarth breaks down what tariffs really are, how they work, and separates economic fact from fiction. Don't miss this chance to expand your economic understanding with one of Missouri's leading experts. Reserve your spot now at newstalkstl.com.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Are you aware how desperate China is getting to make Trump and his tariffs look bad? China's ambassador to Australia argued for the Aussies join China and fight back against that bully, Trump. Australia rejected the invitation, saying, "We're not going to hold hands with China." Other nations who were yelping are now working with Trump to reduce tariffs on their goods, and the bully, Trump, is working with them. It's the art of the deal. So now China is trying a new public relations tactic. They're playing 72-year-old footage of Mao, the founder of the Chinese Communist Party. They're showing it to their subjects to anyone who will watch. They're trying to show we can be strong like Mao. Do this again. If you know history, Mao is not a good role model. It'd be like Germany running footage of Hitler insisting, this is how we will win. No, it does not work. Mao melted down tractors and plows, slaughtered livestock. If the people were to survive, they had to farm with no tools, no equipment. It's estimated that under his leadership, either directly or by starvation, he killed 30 to 55 million.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
Here's great news. Napoli Kirkwood is now open. So that means fine dining right in the heart of Kirkwood. So you have the original Cafe Napoli in downtown Clayton, Napoli 2, Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, plus Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, and now adding Napoli Kirkwood. What a great place to dine. Napoli Kirkwood, now open.
Experience history as it comes alive at the Champ Clark Memorial VFW Post 5553 History Day, April 12th in Bowling Green. Presenters and reenactors will transport you through America's war eras. For more info, call 573-470-9066.
McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com.
SR1 Sundays.
Aaron Dorr with the Missouri Firearms Coalition. I want to remind you to tune in to Shall Not Be Infringed every Sunday night at 9 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. Part of SR1 Sundays at 6 p.m. it's Stand and Fight with Senator Nick Schroer, followed by Straight Lines with Elizabeth Kaiser at 8. And again, Shall Not Be Infringed at 9. Then download the News Talk app and listen anywhere, anytime to 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
SR1 Sundays.
Sunday night at 6 on News Talk STL.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Bunny Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on the St. Louis radio airways for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can now hear Doug and Safe Bunny Radio 3 times every week yet on News Talk STL. But in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeBunnyRadio.com. What else do our listeners need to know, Doug?
Simply put, I focus on helping pre-retirees and retirees build, preserve, and protect retirement assets, and I've been helping my clients solve their insurance and financial needs for the past 33 years. I also strive to educate my clients on how to prepare for retirement, minimize the impact of market volatility on their assets, and deal with the challenges of increased longevity. Call me today at 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233.
Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
On the next
Larry Connors USA.
If the stock market is going down, you know the legacy media will cry out about it. If it's going up, crickets.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. A little bit more here with myself, Tony Colombo, in studio with producer Stell Ponticus. A few minutes, we'll hand you off to the O'Reilly Report, then the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Big thanks to State Rep Travis Wilson for joining us in that last segment. I mentioned the podcast earlier. We put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day. It's the best way to make sure that you never miss anything that happens on the show. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform, or you can also access it through our new and improved station app. Check out the News Talk STL app. All right, Stel, a couple things I wanted to talk to you about. We teased this a little bit earlier. Haven't had a chance to talk about it. The White House press office has a new policy. They are refusing to respond to emailed questions from reporters who display their pronouns in their email signatures. The White House says that if these reporters are going to deny biological reality, they can't be trusted to write honest stories. Therefore, they don't deserve the right to have their emails responded to.
I totally agree.
I don't like it.
I love it. I love it. Put them on notice. I totally am in agreement with
Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, said, quote, as a matter of policy, we do not respond to reporters with pronouns in their bios. She said this in a recent interview. The reporter mentioned an instance where the Department of Government Efficiency, DOE's senior advisor, Katie Miller, allegedly refused to answer a pronoun displaying reporter about Doge records. Miller from Doge at the time said, quote, as a matter of policy, I don't respond to people who use pronouns in their signatures as it shows they ignore scientific realities and therefore ignore facts. Miller told a reporter in a separate message, she added, quote, this applies to all reporters who have pronouns in their signature.
I think the addendum to that, by the way, is she also said, how can we trust anything that individual puts out when they don't even understand gender issues?
Yeah, right. If you're a boy and you are telling us that you're a girl, how do we know that we can trust whatever else you're saying?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's the official policy from the Trump White House. There's one thing that you can say about the Trump administration is that they don't mess around. They back up their beliefs, like them or not.
And they've been totally transparent on everything.
You're exactly right. We played that clip earlier about how the CNN statistic guy, Henry Enton, could not believe the latest polls that have come out about how popular and how trustworthy American voters think that the Trump administration and the Republican Party is right now. And that is something that has been owned by Democrats in polls over the recent decades, to be honest with you. And he just couldn't believe it.
By the way, when you played that clip, did you notice the lady hostess jumped in with, really?
Really? I know. Yeah.
Really?
He was like, these are shocking results. He was like, really? Yeah. Nobody can believe it on the left that their lies aren't working anymore. And I think this is another indication of that. We've always been told, and I've always believed, that there's nobody more popular in politics than the Obamas, that they are gods when it comes to the Democratic Party, and that they're running the show, and that if Barack could run for president again, he would win in a landslide. I actually believe that he would win. I always thought that Michelle Obama would be a very scary opponent for a Republican. So I've always thought that the Obama popularity thing is real, but some new numbers regarding Michelle Obama's new podcast maybe shows that they're losing relevance and maybe not as popular as they once were. The former First Lady's new podcast ranks 34th on Spotify's top podcast chart. It's her podcast with her brother, Craig Robinson. They launched their podcast venture with 2 episodes on March 12th. The first episode currently has 335 downloads. And
335,000?
335,000 downloads. The second episode went down to 194,000. Those are not great.
That's awful.
Those are not big numbers for somebody that's as nationally known as Michelle Obama when it comes to podcast downloads. I don't know. Am I looking too much into it, or is this telling you that people don't care what Michelle Obama has to say?
If you haven't seen clips from it, it is horrendous. It is very awkward. She and Craig sit there and discuss making chocolate chip cookies and doing other sorts of stuff that is totally innocuous stuff that doesn't make any sense at all for an individual. You're tuning in to hear political and news type issues, and you're not getting that with them. And if it is mentioned, it's just a little sidelight thing. So I agree with folks who have said, no, I'm not watching this.
I've never understood, and I think you just touched on it right there, and it really made me think of this. When it comes to the Obamas and their popularity and, what people want to hear from them, as I said, I've never doubted their influence and, how strong, Barack Obama's word or his endorsement could be with something. But over the years, they have tried. You've seen talk show hosts and people like Oprah and specials on Michelle Obama. Anytime they've tried to make Michelle Obama like the homemaker mom, talking about what's your favorite recipe or what's your cleaning tip, like she just comes off as completely out of touch and fake whenever they try to make her like the relatable woman of the family or whatever it may be. And I don't get it. Like, you don't have to be that, Michelle Obama. You've already got a great resume and and popularity. It just always comes off as, and you were just talking about, that's what they talk about on their podcast. That just has always come off to me as super fake. Like, she reads an article about what real people think and feel, and then she tries to mimic that because she doesn't really connect with real people in any way.
Hate to be honest, but don't waste your time looking for it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Nobody is, apparently.
Apparently not.
So maybe the Obama's popularity, as I mentioned, has slipped.
By the way, I want to say a big thank you to Great Harvest Bread Company for the treats that they brought by.
Great Harvest Bread Company in Maplewood, especially this time of year. Get your Easter orders in. The best bread, muffins, cookies you will find anywhere. Great Harvest Maplewood. Keep it here. O'Reilly next, then Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Nate Lucas here for the Village Bar in the heart of Des Peres. Since 1948, the Village Bar has been the go-to destination for delicious food, cold drinks, and unbeatable atmosphere. Savor their famous wings, burgers, and onion rings, or grab a drink from their fully stocked bar. Catch all the big games and enjoy the company of their friendly staff. Plus, don't miss the 1879 Distillery, a one-of-a-kind experience right next door. The Village Bar offers the best value in town. Find the Village Bar on Facebook and come experience where history meets great times. You'll be glad you did.
Love your couch but hate sinking into it? Custom Foam has your solution. We specialize in replacing your cushion foam with firmer options, firmer than anything you'll find in furniture stores, and a fraction of the cost of new furniture. Need extra firm support or soft cushioning for your back pillows? We have options you can test in person. From couches to window seats, dining chairs to custom projects. We'll have your furniture feeling like new in just a few days. We even offer same-day service. Visit custom-foam.com. That's custom-foam.com.
Are uneven concrete surfaces causing you headaches? Polytime Concrete Leveling and Restoration has the solution. We're a veteran and family-owned business offering long-lasting solutions for all your concrete problems. From precision concrete leveling to our superior restoration services, our precision polyjacking outperforms traditional mudjacking any day. Call Polytime at 636-487-3282 for a free estimate or visit itspolytime.com. Mention Newstalk SDL and get $125 off any job of $600 or more, or 10% off your service.
I'm Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Human trafficking is occurring right here in Missouri. You can help combat it by learning the signs of human trafficking and reporting suspicious activity to law enforcement. Victims may appear malnourished, show signs of mental or physical abuse, or avoid social interaction. If you're a victim or know someone who needs help, contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or text the word HELP to Be Free. Together, we can fight human trafficking in Missouri.
Brought to you by the Missouri Attorney General's Office.
Parents want more choices rather than fewer when it comes to their children's education. And now some Missouri parents will have one more option to get their children the best education available. Low-income students and those with disabilities in Missouri's largest communities can now apply for an Empowerment Scholarship Account, or ESA. With an ESA, the money the state would normally pay to your child's public school goes into an account that you control. You can use the funds for private school tuition, online learning programs, a private tutor, or other approved uses. You can tailor your child's education. For too long, Missouri officials have operated on the mistaken notion that parents only need one choice: their assigned public school based on their address. ESAs put parents in charge. It's school choice at its best, with money following the students to the place that best fits their needs. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. This Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Bill O'Reilly here. You are listening to the O'Reilly Update. Coming up next, the news with Mike Slater.
Thank you, Bill. It's Friday, April 11th, 2025. Here's what's happening today in America. The SAVE Act, budget framework, helicopter crash, and Hollywood in China. That's all coming up. Then Bill's going to be here with your message of the day. But first, the House passed the SAVE Act, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. 220 votes in favor, 208 against. 4 Democrats joined the unified Republicans. So now it's off to the Senate. It will require 60 votes to pass the Senate, so they'll need some Democrats. The bill requires states to obtain in-person documentary proof of citizenship before registering a person to vote for a federal election. If you're already registered, you don't have to do anything until the next time you register to vote. The measure would also require states to remove non-citizens from existing voting rolls. Chuck Schumer said the Republican SAVE Act reads more like a how-to guide for voter suppression. It goes against the very foundations of our democracy. Mark my words, this will not pass the Senate. Chip Roy in the House, who wrote the bill, said in order to preserve the